Right, so the game that I think gets better on a second playthrough absolutely has to be Dark Souls, because it's a weird experience now that it's such a big franchise and such an iconic brand that everyone knows everything about. But going into that first game, when you didn't know anything about the series or what it was supposed to be, means that you miss so much. I was not accustomed to that style of game when I first jumped into Dark Souls, and because I was getting completely murdered every single time I went around a corner, I didn't have the patience to properly take it all in and make sure I hit all of the secrets, because this is a series that is so full of dense mysteries to kind of unfold. It famously does not spoon feed you anything, and that means you have to figure everything out. But that is hard to do when you're getting to grips with the mechanics and the way the worlds are fleshed out and how everything interconnects with each other. It's all awesome stuff, but on a second playthrough, when you already have that knowledge in mind, when you already know what's coming around the next corner, you are less worried about the immediate sort of route from A to B, and you get chance to actually explore and look for secrets and look for the hidden locations that kind of make it one of the best games of all time. Like, I've played this game 3 times or something now, and each time I go back to it, I'm always finding something new. When I went down that big tree on my second playthrough, not knowing an invisible wall was there, because why would you know an invisible wall was there in a tree that's just kind of sitting out somewhere? I thought it was amazing, and you get to the bottom and there's a sense of wonder seeing that Hydra and feeling like you've properly discovered something. And as a result, every Souls game I've played since, I actually now play with a guide, which might be controversial. It's not that I go through, every single section knowing what's next, but I will do it area by area. But then when I think I've finished everything there is to see in a certain location, I will then check the guide to make sure I didn't miss anything, because I can appreciate everything the first time through. Because sadly, the reality is that I don't often play games more than once, so I might be waiting 5 years to unearth those secrets, and it's better for me if I know everything, you know what I mean? If I can get everything out of one playthrough. So because of the sheer enjoyment that I got out of playing Dark Souls 2, 3, and potentially more times afterwards, it means that now I can fully appreciate that series and just absolutely drink it in as much as possible.
So for my thing, I'm going to go with Hotline Miami, because although it's known as this big, overblown, violent gore fest with synthwave music, they're all, that's 3 reasons why I love it quite a lot as well. Both those games, Hotline 1 and Hotline Miami 2, Wrong Number, have a weirdly underrated but incredible backbone of story, and there's so much to pick up. And I think the first time through, especially in the second one, which a lot of people kind of got put off because it was more gun-based, it was more about shooting enemies from across the map, and it was a lot harder, it was a lot more based on ranged combat and things like that. And the way that the story is told, where it's in 3, I think it's at least 3 different timelines, it's super easy to miss out on what's actually going on, and the fact that you're diving back into the main character from the original game, you're seeing what's happened in the city that he's been in, and because it's been this crazy serial killer man going around brutally murdering everybody, Hotline 2 sort of explores every facet of that, and shows you this police detective that's chasing him down. It shows some fan hooligans that think he's the coolest thing ever and they just want to be like him. It shows this other sort of journalist also sitting in on courtroom hearings and stuff. Basically, just you've kind of got this weird, like, Jacket from the first game becomes this nexus of storytelling in the sequel, and you kind of need to go back through, I would say, both games multiple times to fully grasp exactly what the 2 creators, whose names I've kind of forgot, Jonathan Soderstrom and Dennis Whedon, I think that's their names, what they're trying to say about violence overall and about media portrayals of violence and the allure of violence and how we can sort of get lost in it. The first game is way more straightforward, and even ends with someone literally having their mind blown, which is one of my favorite sequences in a game, but taken together and playing them all the way through and just seeing what those 2 people were deciding to go with over time and extrapolate on this allure, like I said, of violence. I think that stuff is fascinating. Hotline Miami 2 was like my game of the year for 2014 or 2016, 2014 when it first came out. Maybe it was 2015, whenever it came out. and I was a big fan. And I would heartily recommend that thing, especially under the guise of going back through it, if you already have, and just seeing how that story eventually comes together. I found a whole mini cottage industry on YouTube of all these people picking apart the timeline and dissecting all these different comments and thoughts and things that are baked into that game that I just found fascinating. You know, layer on top all the guns, violence, machetes to the face, and the synthwave, and you have a pretty good combo. So let's just go with Hotline Miami 1 and 2.
So a game that I think is better on a second playthrough is actually, I guess technically 2 games, but it's the Hitman games, the newest ones. So there was Hitman and then Hitman 2, but it's the ones where it's like episodic, there's different levels that you can go to. And the reason that I think they're better on a second playthrough is that when you play through them first, it's got quite a decent story. So you're playing it to try and be as stealthy as you can, to try and just kind of kill the guy or the girl or whoever it is that you're killing. You're just trying to get there in the most easiest way possible, I guess. You're just trying to get there, kill the person, and then leave undetected without kind of trying to completely mess everything up. So I have played both the Hitman games 1 and 2 several times now, and I don't even play it for the story anymore. I play it to kind of do the challenges, the escalation missions. I try and get as many of the unlockables as I can. There's little challenges that you can do where it's try to kill them by poisoning their drink, or you have to kill them while they're taking a wee, or kill them while they're in the shower, or kill them by suffocating them while they're having a nap. So there's different ways that you can kill each person, but on the first playthrough you just kind of go with the first option that's presented to you because you just want to get in, kill them and leave. But when you're playing it again, you have so many different options that you can go around, and what I tend to do is I kind of go in and I'm I'm gonna have a little wander around, and then I'll go and kill the person by poisoning their food, and then I will exit the mission, and then I'll go back in it again. I'm right, now what's another way that I can kill them? I'll go in and I will kill them by pushing them off a cliff, or I'll kill them by throwing an exploding golf ball at them. There's so many different avenues that you can go down when you play through it the second time that you're just way too focused to play through the first time because you just want to kind of get in and get out, whereas the second time you can just be a lot more creative, you can have a lot more fun with it. It's not as stressful, it doesn't matter if you die, you can be silly, you overhear weird conversations, you kind of unlock little clues, and it's just the little things like that that you completely miss on your first playthrough that just make the second playthrough just so much more enjoyable and fun, because there's little Easter eggs and hidden things that you just wouldn't normally see because you're too busy focusing on what you're supposed to do. So yes, Hitman 1 and 2, both of those games are just tremendously so much more fun for me on the second playthrough, because there is just an unlimited possibility of things that you can discover and play with. So yes, they are my choices.
So for me, a game that is better the second time through is a little overlooked gem of last year called Remnant from the Ashes. It's basically Dark Souls with guns. I did a whole entry on this on Chatty last year. But the beauty of Remnant is that each of the levels, each of the worlds that you traverse throughout the campaign or individually on the adventure mode are made up of little chunks of map, and every time you re-roll either the entire campaign or an adventure mode, those random pieces are put back together in any random order, with all a plethora of bosses per world sprinkled in as well. So every single time you play through the campaign on basically New Game Plus, because you can take all the stuff you've unlocked so far into a new world, or you're just playing the same world on adventure mode, no two experiences are the same. I've got 40 hours in this game and I still haven't found all of the bosses, mainly because I've had the same bosses come up again in subsequent rerolls, but the replayability is there and you can continue to level things up, level up new weapons, and they've just released a DLC as well, which means there are new weapons, new bosses, and I think there are new map chunks for each of the worlds as well. So for me, Remnant is one of the best games to just keep playing over and over again for the second time, for the third time, for the fourth time, and for however many times you want to, because it's really good fun. You should totally give it a try if you're into Souls-likes, or even if you're not sure. This was the first Souls-like I properly put time into. It's really good. It's on Xbox Game Pass on console if you fancy giving it a go, but it's totally worth a try.
For games that are better on the second playthrough, I've got to jump right in with my quite obvious answer of Skyrim and or the Elder Scrolls in general. But I think that kind of boils down to the point that RPGs are better in general. If you've got something that is packed full of side quests, that has a really engaging main quest, that has all this extra side stuff, it's so easy to jump into it the first time and want to do everything. Like Skyrim, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do all the side quests, I wanted to do all of the main quests, all in one big mishmash bunch, and just experience as much as I possibly could in the shortest amount of time possible to just shove it in my eyeballs and or face. And I was doing the Dark Brotherhood, I was doing the Fighters Guild, doing the Mages Guild, and all of it didn't quite make sense in an actual, like, you know, with the way a narrative should actually work, because I just wanted to do every single thing I could. So that, it doesn't dull the experience, it's much more exciting doing it that way because you're like, oh, I get to see everything ever. But the second playthrough is always much better because you streamline your experience to do what kind of fits your character. You can kind of roleplay it a bit more and go back to the things that you know you really enjoyed, because you're going to do everything the first time around. You find all the stuff that actually is a bit cack and just kind of thrown in as filler. When you play it the second time around, you can just mainline what you want to see and turn yourself into a wholly directional character that kind of works for what you want to experience. And Skyrim in particular obviously has been released 5 million times with 5 million different things attached to it, so you can play the first one and then the remastered one, and then with all the mods and everything like that, so you can make your second experience exactly what you want it to be. So RPGs in general, definitely, but Skyrim in particular, because that second playthrough when I went through and just did my Thieves Guild, Dark Brotherhood, Khajiit assassin basically role, chef's kiss. That was the good stuff. Now I might go and play it again. Be a mage or something, I don't know. Second playthrough or the best one because you pick out your favourite things. Stand by it.
Hello, you saucy little eggs. The thing is, for me, the game that gets better on a second playthrough, for yours truly, Jules Gill, is actually quite a tough one to answer because I could have chosen things like Nier, you know, when you go back and you now understand what the shade's saying. I could have chosen The Quiet Man, because at least you can bloody understand what Tosh is being dribbled out in that game. Not a good one. But for me personally, what I really like, a game that I insist is better on a second playthrough, is Batman Arkham Asylum. And the reason being because you can go through this game now with the added ability of taking away the indicators that are above the enemies' heads. And that means that it's even harder. And for me, I love a good bit of challenge, and I really felt that this allowed me to immerse myself in the leathery and quite possibly very smelly cowl of Batman after fighting all of those goons all that time. But for me, it changed the entirety of the experience because now it really felt like a slogfest. It felt like when I was overwhelmed, I was truly overwhelmed. And when I finally came out on top in those combat sections, my God, did it feel good. So yeah, while not technically changing much, or if any of the story, the gameplay that was changed because of this taking away was brilliant. I love it. And I love Batman. I love him like it was my real dad. He's not. My real dad's called Steve. Worked in a quarry.